My name's Jan Zuckerman, and I'm from Portland, Oregon. I am a retired teacher. I taught for 30 years in Portland, and now I'm a storyline trainer. I work with storyline design in Portland and train teachers in storyline.
Okay. Why storyline?
Wow. Well, I've been teaching storylines for almost my entire career. It's a beautiful way to integrate all subject areas. But more than that, it's, life is all about stories. I mean, we want to tell stories, we want to live stories. And so when you create stories with children and they become the characters and then things happen, then they're invested in that story. And then they want to look for solutions and it's very meaningful. The most meaningful, I think, way to teach is through storyline.
Okay. How can storyline be developed, you think, and used to be successful regarding learning for sustainable development?
Right.
Big question.
Yeah, it's a big question, but I mean, it encompasses so much. But through storyline, when you talk about sustainability, we're talking about communities, how families live together, how communities live together and thrive and are able to sustain themselves. You're talking about health-wise, environmental. I mean, everything is connected, of course, as systems when we think of environmental and health systems. So when you're creating a setting and you have for example, like I'm seeing at the school here, the neighborhood, and so you're creating a setting of the neighborhood. You have families that are moving in. How do these families live and work together? Problems arise, just like in any community, and then how do they address these so that that community can continue to live together and be healthy and happy. And what I saw, at least today, at the school here, was looking at issues where just how do you communicate with one another, how do you treat one another, and then how do you stay healthy in your indoor environment and outdoor environment, and the habits that you have created, the way you live, how does that contribute to an environment that's going to be healthy for long term, for the future, not just for now. So, but do you want me to tell a little bit about the storylines that I've done or that have addressed that, or?
Yeah, if you have an example, but I would like you to say something about what is it? What is because you said something like in true storyline. You said that. In true storyline. What is that? What is it in storyline that makes this happen in the classroom?
Right. Well,
if you want to give examples, that's okay.
Yeah.
If you just want to say.
Well, I mean, it's meaningful. So you're creating an environment. You're at the setting. You create characters that interact, that live in that setting, or interact in some way with that setting, and then things happen there to that setting or to other characters, and because of that, students are invested in the person that they've created, and they're invested in that place. And so when you're invested and you're connected to that place, then something happens, then you actually care about the outcome. You care about what you want to come up with. You want to protect it, or you want to care for it, and you want to come up with. You look at real life problems. You address those real life issues through your character that maybe you wouldn't have been able to had you not created that character. So I think that's a big part of it. And I'm trying to think.
It's okay. That was wonderful.
Okay.
That was wonderful. How do you think, because I hear you say that they are invested because of their characters, how do you think that in the students' heads the work during the storyline, how does that connect with their own life? Can you say something about that?
Sure. Yeah, so I think about, you create a character, but you really know yourself and you know your family and your community. So through that character, a lot of yourself is in that character too. But you see issues happening to other people. So when you become a character that maybe is very different than yourself, you're still connecting. You're seeing. You're using the lens of that character to address an issue, that then you can think about what that character is doing and relate it to your own life, and how would you then, as a person in your community, act. You learn from your character, really, and you learn from other characters, but you're also learning from each other because they're interconnected. You can't completely separate yourself. So.
Good. What is, you think, the biggest challenge when you're training teachers to become storyline teachers? What is the crucial thing that you need them to understand to be a good, true storyline teacher?
Oh boy,
Sorry for
that's a hard one.
questions.
Yeah,
because this one is one that I'm working with. Maybe I'm off topic now, but I don't care because I want her answer.
Yeah, I think when I'm training teachers, first is to not be so hard on themselves. I mean, it's a big process to think as the story unfolds. So to begin with like any good story, you have to think about what would come next naturally. And I think that's a challenge for teachers. They want to cram in every piece of curriculum into one storyline, and you have to really think about, what are the main, concepts. What is it that you're trying to teach, and not teach every single thing through that story. And then keeping those characters alive, because it's really easy to create a character and you put it aside, and then something happens, but you're not invested in that person. And so it's important. I think one thing for teachers is to take the time to really create a setting that the students will love and be connected to and feel proud of, and then take the time to build the characters that are developed, that really have personality, and even little things that you can do, that teachers can do to just bring them alive, just constantly throughout the storyline, because then they will start to respond as that character. They'll really start to think about things through that character. And then, the other thing is to have teachers understand that you can get into character and get out of character, and you can talk about your characters, as a student can talk about their character, and the characters can talk about the students. So to take that time, I think, before incidents, before things happen, is really important. Just like any story, if you're not connected with the characters in the story, then you don't really care about what happens to them, and it doesn't seem real. So I think that's one thing I would say to teachers, to take the time and not think that that's wasted time, but it's worth it. And then everything falls into place. That you pick, and then to pick a few incidents, a few things that you really want to address, and dig deep in those things, and not feel like you're doing a bunch of little things that are superficial, because I think then you feel like, now I have to go teach that subject. But if you dig deep, they'll make connections to other things. So picking, a few main incidents, and then some shorter ones also, and then thinking about different ways to address those incidents, I think is helpful. And then always having some kind of celebration or some kind of culmination where there's a closure, I think is super important. And reflecting, and asking the students what they learned and how they felt about it, and as teachers working together and reflecting and refining their storylines. And just know that, there's a lot of work at the beginning that you have to do to create that storyline, and a lot of prep. But then once it's done, it's like magic. you've got this very deep, rich storyline, this curriculum method of teaching that is going to take you to places that they would never go to if they had just, decided, oh, I'm going to teach about forests. That's very different than, that you've gotten lost in the forest and you have to figure out how to survive in the forest. Or there's a forest fire in this beautiful forest that you visit all the time. Is very different than just learning about a different forest. So, is that
Wonderful,
enough?
Wonderful. Do you have any more questions?
No.
Did I touch enough on?
It was fantastic.
Okay,
It
okay.
was, yeah.
Okay.
One more. I have one more question. Sorry. Can you say one thing that is interesting me more and more is how to develop situations or incidents in a storyline that really works with the students' feelings?
Right.
Have you thought anything about that? That is a weird question, maybe.
Yeah. No, I mean, we think about all that all the time. I mean, it is the student's feeling or the character's feelings, or
Yeah.
both.
No, using the character's feelings to go to the student's feeling, that interaction
Right,
thing, that is
right.
something that's fascinating me.
Right.
Do you have anything to say about that? You can say
well,
no as well.
No, I'm thinking about, when we're thinking about just the character's development,
Yeah.
we also oftentimes do, what's the character thinking, like speech and speak and think bubbles, think
Explain,
bubble.
please.
So, something happens.
Yeah.
Well, what does your character think about that? And you might make a little, like when you've seen a little bubbles with a think bubble.
Oh, yeah.
But then what would they actually say? So that whole idea of that, we think things, but we may not say what we think. And so, being able to do that through the character.
Mm.
And then later, what would you say to your character? What are you thinking? Do you agree? Do you disagree? How do you react? So you can react to your character or to other characters in journaling or quiet journals, and but you can also do the think, speak bubbles. And I think that's one way. And then just doing a lot of drama, I think, is helpful, is to, where you react and maybe you're making a movement or you're saying one word in a way that's like, if you're happy, how do you say it? If you're sad, how would you say that? How do you greet your neighbor, when you're in a bad mood, or, and having time to walk around and do that and get into character. And then how do you actually do that yourselves? How do you transfer that? I don't know.